this route's probably gonna be even longer, but this is the final ending, the Lillian ending. Let's do it. No time like the present. Oh, I'm gonna regret doing this, because I'm already in pain from reading. Oh, this time we actually get to ignore DeQuincy. Cool. Just ignore her. No matter how much DeQuincy was crying, Samantha did not want to become involved. She could remember, sharply, what had happened between the pair of them only 2 months ago, and she had no desire to renew acquaintances with the other girl. Just thinking about it was making her feel faint. And now that we know, I don't feel too bad about it myself. And so it was, with a small amount of guilt pricking into her subconscious, that Samantha walked past DeQuincy and took her seat near the back of the coach. And we just skipped the whole scene! Whee! Oh yeah, that's right, she was listening to aggressive German music. Say nothing. Man, we're so mean to Roberta until it's her route. Samantha wondered what it was the other girl had been so upset about on the coach. Given she seemed fine right now, Samantha couldn't imagine it had been anything too serious. She had probably just been jumping to conclusions. Samantha did that a lot. If one of DeQuincy's family members had just died, surely she wouldn't look so disaffected right now. Such a rapid recovery was not possible, was it? Then again, with DeQuincy, almost anything seemed possible. Moods fluctuated quite a bit, almost as much as Samantha's own did. I thought you were ignoring me. I'm just a little bit surprised. Lillian's eyebrows raised into 2 neat little arches. What do you mean? Why should you be surprised? I just thought you were supposed to be ignoring me. Don't be so melodramatic. I wasn't ignoring you. I am not a child. Then what were you doing? I was just avoiding you. That's all. That sounds like the same thing to me, but sure. Okay, Lillian. Oh, so that was all, was it? Even though Samantha had a great deal of respect for Lillian, the audacity of that statement was enough to help her overcome the fluttering of nervous butterflies nesting in the pit of her stomach. You can call it whatever you want, Lillian, either avoiding or ignoring, but it all amounts to the same thing. No matter what you say, you have not spoken to me for almost 3 months, and that is a fact. That's right. You may be trying to act reasonable, Lillian, but you cannot deny that you have not been a good friend to Sam. You should know how she gets over the holidays. You should have expected it. You were supposed to be her friend. Unlike Samantha, who was shaking, and Roberta, who was scowling, Lillian's expression did not change. Instead, she brushed a few strands of hair out of her face, calm and collected as per usual. I apologize if I have caused any offense. It was not my intention. Your intentions don't matter. The end result is what's important. And yet, despite your high-handed lecturing, I seem to recall you were the one who went home to stay with your family over Christmas, whilst I remained at St. Mary's with Samantha. How peculiar. Roberta's face turned red. It often did when she started to lose arguments. Why you? That doesn't have anything to do with anything. No, it does not. Neither do you. This conversation is one Samantha and I should have alone. You have no part to play in it. Of all the rude things, I've been friends with Samantha far longer than you have, Lillian. And Samantha is old enough to stand her own in a discussion without your help. Why, you... Roberta, it's all right. Samantha offered Roberta what she hoped was a comforting smile. It was about as comforting as she could manage, given her stomach still felt like it was being eaten away from the inside. Lillian is probably right. This is a conversation we should have alone. Indeed. I am glad at least you understand, Sam. Now, however, is probably not the best time for it. What do you mean? I mean, we are falling further and further behind the rest of the class. We should hurry. Yes, of course. Samantha jumped, her eyes wide as goose eggs. At least Lillian, whose expression had been dour throughout the exchange, seemed to find it amusing, because Samantha swore she saw the smallest hint of a smile tugging at the corners of her lips. Just for a second. Maybe less than that. Okay, that's kind of cute. Okay, whatever. But it was still enough. Roberta, meanwhile, could be heard muttering under her breath. That's freaking small, Jax. It's just like, fucking. Lillian, being Lillian, ignored her completely. Oh, this is great. Alright, cool. And then we're gonna defend Lillian because we like Lillian. Defend her honor, like the good old friend we were, and still want to be now. Alright, we're gonna agree with her, cause she good for now. And then we're gonna confide, because yes. But then there's not even a point where we lie or anything with Roberta, so this must really diverge. I wonder. One of the biggest I know, but maybe that's part of your appeal. I don't know what we're responding to. This is the problem with skipping ahead. Oh wait, that was what Lillian was saying. My bad, wrong voice. We're gonna pretend Lillian said that. Huh? Samantha lifted her head, eyes wide. Contrary to her expectations, Lillian was not surveying her with scorn, her eyes cold and hard. Instead, though it was slight, there was a smile quirking the corners of her lips. Samantha hardly dared to believe it. She felt sure she was dreaming. Was Lillian genuinely happy to see her too? Now, take this and wipe your It's turning out better than it did before! Now take this and wipe your face. No student at St. Mary should ever look so woebegone. It will give our school a bad name. Samantha blinked. Lillian's right hand was extended towards her, a handkerchief resting in her palm. Again, I love the music, but it's being a little extra right now. There we go. A handkerchief resting in her palm. The handkerchief was of a simple design, pure white, lined with lace. Of course, Lillian would have a handkerchief. She wasn't the kind of person who kept wadded up balls of age-old tissues in her pocket. Not like Samantha, who frequently forgot to empty out her pockets before she loaded her laundry into the washing machine. Somewhat relatable, if I wasn't so freaked out by my own germs. I've done it before, though. Lillian was far too elegant for that. You're sure? Of course I'm sure. I'll get it dirty. Isn't that the point of having a handkerchief? It would be completely useless if I carried it around and never used it, wouldn't it? But... Lillian clicked her tongue against the roof of her mouth. Being overly considerate isn't actually a virtue, you know? It's a bother. If I'm telling you that you can use my handkerchief, you can use it. I like to think I'm a fairly straightforward person. Same. But I'd feel bad about it. Lillian sighed. She always sighed. Look, everything in this world exists for a reason. The purpose of this handkerchief is to dry tears, so you might as well let it fulfill its role. Samantha giggled. I didn't realize you were such a materialist. I am not. I am simply being sensible. At the expense of sensitivity. Where is your sense of romance, Lillian? I have a great deal of tolerance for romanticism, but only when it concerns the beauties of the natural world. I have far less tolerance for stubborn people who refuse to do what's best for them, on vague moral grounds that don't make any sense. I could never argue with you, Lillian. You always know how to put me in my place. With a small smile, Samantha finally accepted Lillian's handkerchief. To Samantha, it was not just a handkerchief, but a momentary offering of peace and stability, like the olive branch that was brought to Noah on the ark. Samantha dabbed at her eyes and blew her nose, trying hard not to sound too unladylike, lest Lillian roll her eyes. There, do you feel better now? A little, I suppose. Lillian shifted back, forming a picture frame with the thumb and forefinger of both hands. She held it up before Samantha, tilting her head to one side, surveying her as though examining a great work of art. The sudden display of playfulness from Lillian, who was usually so stern, was so unprecedented that Samantha started to giggle. Your eyes still look a little red, but you're more presentable now. You have my official stamp of approval. Approval? Yes. At the head of St. Mary's Student Council, I declare that you are now fit once more to wear the uniform of our hallowed institution. Thank you. I will treasure your approval until my dying day, Lily. As you should. It is not easy to obtain. Samantha often forgot, given Lillian was so proud and proper, but the other girl did have a sense of humor. That was another one of the reasons why Samantha had been so drawn to Lillian in the first place, even though the two girls had very little in common on a surface level. You cut your hair, didn't you? Yes, I did. Samantha nodded, pitching a strand of her hair between her thumb and forefinger. She craned her neck, examining it. Does it look alright? I think it needs some work. More than some, actually. Is it really that bad? I do not like to judge others based on their appearances, but yes, it does look bad. Hey now, if you don't judge based on appearances, why do you always get on my case about the state of my uniform? Because our uniforms are important. How we wear them reflects directly upon our school, and on me too, as the head of the student council. It is an important issue, one that many of my peers do not seem to take seriously. You've become so officious, Lily. Lillian raised an eyebrow. If I was as officious as you claim I am, Miss Coleridge, would I let you use that old nickname so easily? I suppose not, no. And I doubt I would be so concerned about your well-being either. You're worried about me? Of course I am. How can I help but worry, knowing how unbalanced you are? And this new look, Lillian gestured towards Samantha's hair, isn't instilling a great deal of confidence in me. I don't think your coping methods are the healthiest. If I had healthy coping methods, I would not be so unwell in the first place. True. Samantha smiled, her face flushing. But I am a little happy to hear that. I thought that you had been ignoring me these last 3 months. I was trying to. I didn't mean I wasn't thinking about you, though. It was impossible for me not to. But you kept turning up to class so late, if you bothered to turn up at all, looking paler and sicker with the passing of every single day. Guess I really am stupid, huh? Well, cutting your own hair was not the best idea you have ever had. It's as though you tried to hack it off with a pair of scissors in the middle of the night. Samantha smiled, holding up a hand as if she were in court. Guilty as charged. Lillian shook her head. You haven't changed at all, have you? Neither have you, Lily. Not really. Because you do not need to. I am perfectly happy the way I am. You, on the other hand. Are you saying I'm no good? Do you wish I was somebody else? I have been trying, Lillian. Really, I have. But I don't know if a complete metamorphosis is entirely possible. I am a human being, not a caterpillar. I know. I should stop holding you to such high standards. I'll only be disappointed. It's nice to know that my best friend thinks of me as nothing but a disappointment. Still consider me your best friend after all this time? Yes, I do. You said it yourself. No matter how much time passes, I've remained exactly the same. My feelings for you too. They'll probably stay the same too, no matter what. I can't help it. Lillian surveyed Samantha in silence for a few moments. Her lips pursed. It took her a while to formulate any words. Well, I suppose I'm flattered. Even if you find it impossible to change right now, I can at least give you a little bit of help. That sounds a little ominous. What are you going to do, Lily? Nothing bad. I just thought. Lillian leaned forwards, teasing a strand of Samantha's choppy hair through her fingers. Ah! Samantha's body tensed at this sudden, unexpected contact. Although the wind was cold, she could feel her face turning red. Her cheeks felt hot. Even her ears felt hot. Why did Lillian always have this effect on her? Your new hair is bothering me. The ends are all uneven. Just looking at you annoys me. So it's not that different from usual, right? Perhaps not, but this is something I could put right with little effort. And I intend to put it right as soon as possible. You want to try and fix me, Lily? I will not hope for such a miracle. That would be far too unlikely. Well, they are called miracles because they are unlikely. If they weren't, they wouldn't be miraculous. Exactly. So I won't wait around on any false hopes. Instead, I'm going to take matters into my own hands. You're so reliable. And you are so consistently unreliable, I suppose you are reliable in your own way. Reliably unreliable? That is a paradox. Then it suits you perfectly, given you are so difficult. Touché. That was kind of nice. Yes, of course. How admirable of you. Roberta turned away from Lillian, disconcerted, and focused her attention back on Samantha. It's a relief you came back anyway. Georgia was convinced you were going to go and hang yourself from a tree. Well, I did briefly consider it, but I didn't have any rope with me and could not think of a workable alternative. Couldn't you have used a creeper? A creeper? We're not in the jungle. Where would I find a creeper strong enough for the task? I suppose you have a point. We told the teachers that you had gone missing when we got back. They considered sending out a search party. Was everyone that worried? They really were. Everybody knows how flaky you are. That's so embarrassing. I don't want anyone to worry about me. I'm not worth it. Then you should go inside and see Miss Pope. Tell her that you're not dead. Samantha pulled a face, as one might make when trying to remove a splinter from the pad of her thumb. Do I really have to? I'm not in the mood to be shouted at. Yes, you do. Nobody else can do it for you. You need to take some responsibility for your actions. I know. I understand. Samantha nodded, ducking her head under the weight of Roberta's glare. She did not bother to point out Roberta was the main reason why she had run away to begin with. She did not think Roberta would appreciate it. I will go and see her, and I will apologize. Good luck. Thanks. Samantha sighed, running one hand through her hair. She was going to need it. Oh gosh, how did Miss Pope talk? Oh no, I don't remember. Oh no. Samantha stood in the corner of the dining room, her hands clasped together at her front, as Miss Pope glared at her. Though Miss Pope was shorter than she was, the authoritarian aura the older woman emanated was so potent Samantha had never felt smaller in all 17 years of her life. When Miss Pope surveyed her, Samantha did not even feel like a human being. Instead, she felt like a stain, the smeared remains of an insect spread across the window pane. It would be you, wouldn't it, Miss Coleridge? Every school trip has one, and in this case, it really could not have been anybody else. I'm sorry. Samantha looked down at her feet, trying to avoid Miss Pope's eye. This feeble attempt at self-protection, however, was fruitless. She could feel, even though she could not see, Miss Pope's penetrating gaze boring through her body, sharper than any knife. And why did you leave your group? Even if you were lost, you should not have run off on your own. That was an incredibly foolish thing to do. I know. I suppose it must be because I am quite a foolish person? Don't try to be clever with me. I have little time for this self-pitying language of yours. I beg you, if not for my sake, then your own, not to try my patience any further. I'm sorry. You are always sorry, and I have fast become tired of our banal interactions. They bore me. Well, if I cannot apologize, then I do not know what else to say. Perhaps, instead of being a lazy student who does not listen, and then apologizing afterwards as though this waives you of any and all responsibility of your actions, you could try to pull yourself together. Samantha tries to concentrate on Miss Pope's lecture, but her immediate response to this abuse was to, metaphorically, stop her up her ears and play Handel's Messiah under her head as loud as possible to drown out the noise. Who wanted to stand idly and listen to someone castigate them anyway? Not even Samantha did. If you started to arrive to class on time, remember to take notes, and it is as you were told, you would no longer need to apologize anymore, because I would not have cause to be mad with you. Did you ever consider this? Samantha's voice faltered. What could she say in return to that? How could she defend herself, or attempt to excuse her actions when Miss Pope found the phrase, "I'm sorry," so incredibly abhorrent? She was fighting a losing battle here, and her only shield had been wrested from her hands. I will try to become a better student. I know it must cause you a lot of grief, and I do not enjoy being a burden upon others. I don't suppose anybody wishes to be a burden, but wishing is a very ineffectual use of your time. Simply wishing for things does not make them so. If you want to change, you need to take action. I understand. If you understand, why do you not do something? Why do you not, do something? Why do you so stubbornly insist upon repeating your mistakes over and over again? Because I do not know how else to act. Because this is just how I am. I suspected as much. Miss Pope sighed, brushing her dark hair behind one ear. Samantha flinched at the slight movement, as though afraid she was going to be struck, which was baseless paranoia, really. Miss Pope may have been incredibly strict, but she was not stupid. No matter how infuriated she became, she would never use physical violence against any of her students, even the ones that truly tried her patience. Once she had locked DeQuincy up in the store cupboard, but that had been a one-off, and she had let her out again 5 minutes afterwards. We do not get along, do we, Miss Coleridge? In fact, we have never gotten along, for as long as I have had the displeasure of teaching you. No, miss. And I do not believe we will ever get along, even if we were the last 2 people alive on this planet. However, this is not because you are unintelligent. Infuriating as it is for me to admit, it is obvious you have a lot of talent. The frickin' pout. Samantha flushed. She had not expected Miss Pope to compliment her. She had never done it before, and Samantha found the sudden change in her tone disconcerting. Was this a new skill that had been added to Miss Pope's arsenal? Tired of criticizing Samantha mercilessly for each and every little thing, had she now decided to opt for psychological warfare? Truly, Miss Pope was a force to be reckoned with. Thank you, miss? Miss Pope snorted, waving one hand carelessly. You do not need to thank me. I am not trying to flatter your ego. I am simply telling the truth. Though it is also true I often wish to give you low grades, regardless, because you annoy me. Is it ethical for a teacher to admit to doing such a thing? I don't care what teachers are and aren't supposed to do, and I don't think it particularly matters, despite my own biases. I still try to be as professional as possible. Miss Pope sighed heavily. Although I wish I could give you low grades, no I cannot. Not in good conscience. When you bother to turn in your work on time, the quality is always exemplary. I know you have some intelligence, and I know you could achieve great things if you put in some effort. However, this only irritates me further. Although you are intelligent, you fail to use your brain. You are squandering your talent, something which I find unforgivable. When you constantly show up to class late and are so sleepy you struggle to keep your eyes open, you are not making good use of your skills. You are hampering your own chances and sabotaging your own future, condemning yourself to a life of mediocrity you do not deserve. Do yourself a favor and try to get your priorities sorted. Start going to bed at a sensible time and lay off all the drinking before it does you serious harm. And if you want my opinion as a professional, I would strongly recommend against the drugs too. For one thing, it's illegal, and for another, you seem to be exactly the kind of person to get hooked on things that hurt you. My word, this is crazy! Samantha stared. Her eyes were so wide it felt as though they might fall right out of their sockets. How did she know about that? Samantha was not like DeQuincy, who spoke about her addictions out loud, as though begging for everyone to hear her. Hadn't the title of DeQuincy's old blog admitted this much, plain as day? What had it been called again? Something like The Confessions of a Teenage Opium Eater? Samantha had always been fairly secretive about these things. Not even Lillian knew the full extent of the things she had experimented with. Where did you hear about that? I didn't hear it anywhere. It was intuition. I already knew about the late nights and the excessive drinking. I was not entirely sure about the drugs, though. Your reaction, however, has provided me with more than enough evidence. You tricked me. Trust me, it was not hard to do. You are very bad at hiding how you feel. You're not going to tell anybody else about this, are you? If people knew, I could get into serious trouble. Yes, you really could get into serious trouble, couldn't you? If I wished, I could easily get you expelled from school, which would be a pity. You're so close to completing your first year of 6th form. Without your A-level results, I know much fancy your chances of getting into your university of choice. Cambridge, was it? Samantha flushed, her whole body trembling with ill-suppressed fear, paranoia, anger? She wasn't entirely sure. Samantha had never liked Miss Pope, but she liked her even less now. Did she exist simply to make Samantha's life miserable? If that wasn't such a self-centered notion, Samantha might have genuinely believed it. Well, keep trying your hardest, Miss Coleridge. Ow. Samantha wished that Miss Pope patted her on the shoulder, using more force than necessary. Just remember, I know things about you, incriminating things. I am not kind enough to keep them a secret. If you make a nuisance out of yourself any more on this field trip, I will not hesitate to make these very interesting pieces of information I have gleaned today known to the school board. Better watch your step from now on. I have eyes everywhere. This teacher is wild. Oh my word. Samantha looked about the dining room, half expecting eyes to blink themselves into existence on the ceiling, the walls, the floor, like macabre mockeries of blossoming flowers. Yes, miss. I will do my best. Good. I'm happy we were able to have this little conversation, Miss Coleridge. Why, I almost feel like we could become good friends, don't you? Why did Miss Pope sound so incredibly cheerful? Was she really that happy that she now had the means to ruin Samantha's academic career held within her hands? Miss Pope really was a frightening person. Alright, and I'm back. Let's continue this, shall we? I had to take a mini break before I finish this game for good. Sorry, I probably look like a mess and much different than how I did when I first started recording this, so. And we can't skip this, cool. Chatter filled the air, mingled with the sound of scraping chairs and clinking cutlery, as the students of St. Mary sat at the long table laid out in the dining room of the hostel. Samantha looked down at the table, examining the other girls. The moment her eyes met Roberta's, Roberta turned her head away, her hair fluttering at the movement. Roberta had been doing her best to avoid Samantha's eye throughout dinner, her gaze fixed pointedly in the opposite direction to where Samantha was sat. Samantha sighed and pushed her food around her plate with her fork, chasing a few peas onto the wooden tabletop. Samantha had something of a complicated relationship with food, and her own weight had a tendency to fluctuate based on her mood. Whenever she was in one of her melancholy moods, she would go for days without eating a proper meal. That was probably one of the few upsides of being depressed, actually. Are you feeling alright? Samantha flushed, looking up at Lillian from underneath her hair. Sorry, I just ate food. And like my face feels weird. I'm okay. I think my stomach hurts just a little. It's probably psychological. All of the ailments you suffer from are like the mysterious chest pains you get whenever you have to work on your English essays. You are probably right. I can't help how I feel though. Whoops, forgot to turn off my phone sound notifications there. I imagine, if you could, you would not choose to be constantly beleaguered by phantom illnesses. That's a word. Exactly. I am not that much of a masochist. I suppose I just feel anxious. You always feel anxious. Yes, but at least I know why this time. Then please, enlighten me. I would like to know. Samantha stared at her plate, at the unappetizing food that was congealing on it slowly. The poor chicken looked so white it looked as though it was suffering from leprosy, and the peas were as hard as bullets. One would have thought, given St. Mary's was private boarding school, their students would be served better food than this on their school trip. Evidently not. Maybe this was part of the authentic, rustic experience to accurately reflect the lives of those who lived in the Lake District? Was that really right? Did many poor people live in the countryside in this day and age? Weren't the quaint thatched cottages, water wheels, and young women with dirty faces who spun thread part of the distant past, evident only in period dramas? Samantha wasn't sure. She had been living in London for so long, she was woefully disconnected with the lives of those who lived in the countryside, even though she had been born there. Roberta and I had something of an argument earlier. Roberta? An argument? Now that's unusual. You think? After speaking to her in our student council meetings, I was under the impression she was the kind of person who would make passive-aggressive remarks, but would never dare to be openly confrontational. I think that might be one of her good points, though. She doesn't like upsetting people. It's noble. Or cowardly. But you're entitled to your opinion, and I am entitled to mine. Come on, Lillian. Roberta's my friend. Do you have to speak of her like that? I speak of people in whatever way I want. I have no obligation to be polite to those who I do not like. But I digress. I suppose, despite her apparent dislike for upsetting others, she was able to ignore this good point of hers when it came to you. Yes, well, it was a stupid argument, really. I think she regrets it, but I don't know if I would feel comfortable sharing a room with her tonight. I don't think she wants to spend time with me. If you wish, I suppose you can always share my room. I can? Of course. I would not make the offer if I did not mean it. We have been through this routine already, haven't we? But aren't there supposed to be 4 girls to a room? Wouldn't you need to kick somebody out? Don't worry about it. There's an odd number of students on this trip, remember? Oh, yes. I forgot. And thanks to that, there are only 3 people in my room. Those people being... myself, naturally, and DeQuincy, if you could stand the thought of spending time with her. Well... Of course, DeQuincy would be sharing Lillian's room. In her excitement, she must have forgotten. Samantha did not particularly want to see DeQuincy again, not after what had happened, but it had been a couple of months ago now. Maybe her memory was playing tricks on her. It did that sometimes, and what had transpired between the pair was not truly as bad as she remembered it. They had both been rather drunk at the time, after all. Did that make it better or worse? Samantha wasn't sure. Samantha shifted. She wanted to avoid DeQuincy, but more importantly than that, she wanted to spend time with Lillian. She would have suffered any indignation as long as she could stay with Lillian, or so long as she could stay with Lillian. I think I'll manage. It was always you she was the most obsessed with, Lillian, not me. Indeed. Lillian nodded her head. Thankfully, it seemed as though she had not noticed Samantha's distress. Or if she had, then she had chosen to ignore it. Given Samantha felt distressed about almost everything, perhaps Lillian had learned to just overlook it. Poking into the dark recesses of Samantha's brain was rarely a wise thing to do, like infiltrating a hornet's nest with a sharp stick. And the third girl is Joanna. Joanna Keats. You know her, don't you? Joanna? Isn't she the small girl? The one who's always ill? That's right. Samantha did not know Joanna Keats particularly well. The two had exchanged brief pleasantries once or twice in the hallways of St. Mary's, but they had never really spoken to one another. That was probably because Joanna was always in the company of Leigh Hunt, a tall girl Samantha found somewhat intimidating. Anyway, the offer stands. Do you want to stay with me tonight? Well, if you are sure you would not mind, and I would not bother you too much. You will not bother me. I will not let you. That almost sounds like a threat, Lillian. It isn't. I am simply telling you that I will not tolerate your company. If you start to act foolish. I am a woman of great compassion, but even my patience can get worn thin. I apologize if I've borrowed too liberally from your boundless compassion over the years, Lillian. I suppose I can be quite selfish sometimes. We are only human. We are all capable of being selfish. I will try not to hold it against you, and I believe I should offer you some form of apology, even though I have always disliked doing so. You are apologizing to me? Suppose I am. In retrospect, I was probably too curt with you. I was unfair. I know. I have always known that you are not entirely well, and your behavior is not always your own fault. I should have been more supportive. Cutting you out of my life was a rash decision, and one I somewhat regret making. You mean you missed me? Unexpectedly so. Really? Me? Samantha Taylor Coleridge, who has only ever caused you grief? That is correct. The Samantha Taylor Coleridge who kept you up all night before an important English exam, so you got a B instead of an A? The one and only. The Samantha Taylor Coleridge who kept asking to borrow your history notes and then spilled water all over your textbook and ruined it? The very same. The Samantha Taylor Coleridge who... Shush. Samantha blinked, startled into silence. Lillian was leaning forwards, one finger pressed against Samantha's lips. All of a sudden, her face was incredibly close. Yes, you, Samantha Taylor Coleridge, the irritating girl who was sitting right in front of me, giving me a headache, and doing her very best to destroy any feelings of goodwill I may still hold towards her. Samantha blushed, looking down at her lap. I apologize, Lillian. I don't really know what to say. This feels like some kind of dream. Then your dreams are more banal than I had imagined. Do you want me to pinch you? No, thank you. If it was a dream, then Samantha never wanted to wake up. Aw, that's such cute art. Oh. It's weird that they're like 16, 17, like that age range. Because they have such baby faces. They look like little girls, like maybe middle school at most. Like they look so young and baby-like. I don't know. It's weird. Are you sure you don't mind doing this? Of course I'm sure. If I minded, I would not have volunteered. Well, if you're sure, I just don't want to be a burden. You aren't a burden, silly. I already said. Ow. Samantha was as Lillian wrapped her knuckles against her head. You need to stop with this habit of second-guessing me. It's almost as though you don't trust me, and all relationships need to be grounded in trust. I suppose you're right. I'm sorry, Lillian. I do not mean to doubt you. I'm worried. You are always worried about something or other. I know, but we only just managed to repair a relationship, and I'm scared. If I start acting too clingy, it will just fall apart again. Lillian sighed. Don't fret so much. I am not as fickle as you are. Samantha wished she could retort, but the words died on her lips. Arguing with Lillian really was impossible, given she was almost always right. Sometimes I worry you know me even better than I know myself. Well, if I really do know you the best, perhaps you should start listening to my advice. Now lean back and be quiet. I need to concentrate. Excuse me. The commanding tone of Lillian's voice made Samantha's heart flutter, and their close proximity was not helping matters. Lillian's fingers were threaded through her hair, gently teasing it with an almost reverent respect. Lillian, despite her harsh demeanor, could be gentle when she wanted. She handled Samantha's hair as though it was something precious, apologizing whenever she had to unpick a particularly stubborn knot. These intimate touches, the light brush of fingertips against the nape of her neck, made Samantha shiver. Her whole body twitched. She inhaled deeply, trying to relax. There was no ulterior motives to Lillian's actions. Of that, Samantha was sure. Lillian was only cutting her hair because disorderly things instilled in her a strong urge to set them right. There was nothing special about this. Not to Lillian, at any rate. Lillian. Samantha. After a minute or so, Lillian paused, peering down at her with a small frown. You're not saying very much. Is that a bad thing? It isn't bad, but it is unusual for you. I'm sorry. I thought you wanted me to be quiet. Not this quiet, though. You're all stiff, too. You should try and relax. Samantha's face turned red. How could she explain to Lillian that her very touch made her heart seize up inside her chest, as though she had been electrocuted? Knowing Lillian, she would probably think she was being melodramatic. Feel free to talk to me. Just don't ask me any complicated questions. I need to concentrate, else you may end up 1 year short. Maybe I would truly look like a tortured artist then. It might suit me. Perhaps. But that kind of look would be rather permanent, and I'm worried you would later grow to regret it. How would you be able to listen to that awful music you like so much with only 1 ear? The music I like is not awful. It's just German. Lillian's lips twitched into a wry smile. Doesn't that amount to the same thing? I think Germany would be very offended if it heard you say that, Lillian. Let it be offended then. I do not care for Germany, and I doubt it cares for me either. Nobody else can hear us anyway. You might think that, but the world we live in is a strange and mysterious one. For all you know, our entire conversation could be being broadcast around the world as we speak. Hush you. Lillian bumped her fist upside Samantha's head again, but gently. What do you know about science? I distinctly remember that you set your shirt sleeve on fire in chemistry once, and you always fall asleep in physics. Well, maybe my technical expertise leaves a little to be desired. It really does. Try sticking to your poetry. It suits you better. You think I am a good poet? I think you're an adequate poet. I enjoy reading your writing, even though I do find it unnecessarily grim. Thank you, Lily. You're welcome. Samantha sighed, leaning backwards into Lillian's touch. Lillian continued to thread her fingers through Samantha's hair, working through the knots with her fingers. Samantha shifted slightly, bringing her thighs close together. The cool rim of the plastic bathtub was cold underneath her exposed skin, and it made her shiver. The bathroom in the youth hostel was small and cramped, everything pressed in together so tightly it made Samantha feel claustrophobic. It was certainly too small for both Samantha and Lillian, but Lillian had found no other place to conduct her impromptu emergency hairstyling service. It was also the only room in the hostel with a lock on it, which was the only way of keeping De Quincy out. Right, I'm going to begin cutting. Remain still, alright? Okay. Samantha twitched as she felt the cool blade of the scissors against the nape of her neck. She drew her thighs together again, her bare toes curling against the porcelain bathtub. Have you had much experience cutting hair before, Lily? More than you evidently have. That was a low blow. I know I didn't do a very good job with it. You don't need to rub it in. It is for the greater good. I hope, if I make you aware of how grave a folly you committed, it will dissuade you from attempting it ever again. I don't know if I would call a single bad haircut a grave folly. Make it sound as though I've killed someone. Judging by the manic way you hacked at your own hair, you were in real danger of killing yourself. I'm surprised you didn't slice right through your jugular. I already told you, I wasn't in my right frame of mind back then. I wasn't feeling very happy. I'm not entirely sure why I cut my hair. It seems like a less harmful alternative. To cutting yourself? Samantha winced. How had Lillian known? She had not told anyone else the real reason why she had taken a pair of scissors to her hair at 3 in the morning. But Lillian had been able to figure it out anyway. Maybe Lillian was right. Perhaps she did know Samantha better than Samantha knew herself. You don't need to act so surprised, Samantha. Cutting one's own hair is not an entirely unusual response to severe depression. It's like this game knows me. I want to cut my hair so bad because I always feel down whenever I see how long it gets, and I'm just like, whenever I feel super down, I'm like, okay, time to get my hair cut. I need a change. Samantha wished she could hang her head and hide behind her fringe, but she could not. Lillian was too busy cutting it, and Samantha did not want to ruin her progress. If she twitched too much, she may end up with no hair left at all. I hope it wasn't too obvious. That you have been unhappy lately? I think it was reasonably obvious, yes. You are rather bad at hiding how you feel. Samantha laughed weakly. It must be because I am a pure and innocent maiden. I wear my heart on my sleeve. And that is why you're so vulnerable. You're just like a small child in some regards. I suppose so. I don't even know why I decided to do it. I just know I was unhappy. I didn't want to be the way I was anymore. I wanted to be somebody else, but I didn't know how. I still don't. Maybe it isn't possible. Even if I cut off all my hair, it wouldn't change the me I am inside. I realized that as soon as I did it. Samantha remembered looking at the locks of her sheared hair curled up in the sink like a small, furry animal. She had prodded it with her scissors, but it did not move. She was not sure why she had expected it to, given it was only hair. She had managed to cut away a part of her, but it was a part that was already dead. If she wanted to change herself, she would have to dig deeper, burrowing beyond the surface level, into her very skin. But her arms were shaking, her heart was pounding, and she knew she did not have the courage. She couldn't do it. I knew changing my appearance would not really change anything, but I still hoped. I thought maybe, but it was all in vain. It was a waste of time, much like everything else I do. I really am an idiot, huh? Bug, no, you're not welcome here. What did I just say? Thank you. Silly. Lillian's voice was light and chiding, but unmistakably gentle. The methodical sound of scissors, a barely discernible snipping sound, reached Samantha's ears. It was relaxing in its regularity, like the dull hum of waves breaking against the shore. At least you were able to exercise some self-control. What do you mean? You did not cut off all of your hair. That is something to be grateful for. Would have been quite the tragedy if you did. You think? Perhaps not on the scale of Romeo and Juliet, but a small sadness nevertheless. Lillian. You have pretty hair, and I dislike it when people needlessly destroy pretty things. There aren't enough pretty things in this world. Samantha flushed, her fingers twisting together in her lap. She was glad that Lillian was focusing on the back of her head, so she could not see just how deeply her compliments were affecting her. Thank you. I'm glad you think it's pretty. If you had known I liked your hair, would that have stopped you from cutting it? I don't know. Maybe. But I felt so miserable back then, I did not really care what anybody thought. To be honest, I think I really did want to die back then. You have always been so melodramatic. It's true. I thought about plunging the scissors into my neck and bleeding out all over the bathroom floor. I thought there might be some kind of beauty in such a destructive action. I am sure the poor person who would have to clean up after such a gruesome suicide would not find it so. No, probably not. They would just find it a pain, wouldn't they? I've heard bloodstains quite badly, and knowing me, I would probably splash it all over the shower curtains. Lillian snorted. I didn't realize you were so cynical. Mopping up after an incident like that could scar a person for life. And you think they'd be more concerned about the shower curtains? I don't know. I try to be optimistic, but it's difficult sometimes. I suppose it must be. If you were so unhappy you considered killing yourself. I am glad you didn't. Oh, sorry. I don't know why I started reading as if I was Samantha. I am glad that you didn't, though. It would be a great loss if you died so young. You're flattering me, Lillian. We both know you are the true genius here. Besides, you do not need to worry about me. I am too much of a coward to ever kill myself. On purpose, at any rate. I'm afraid it would hurt too much. Sometimes I tear up when I get a paper cut. I must sound like such an idiot. I can't even self-harm properly. Well, you may call it cowardly, but if you really are a coward, then I'm happy. The blades of the scissors flashed silver. Lillian leaned forwards, measuring some of Samantha's hair between her fingertips. Lillian's chest was pressed against Samantha's back, almost as in an embrace. The closeness made Samantha's heart beat even faster. If you were to kill yourself, I don't know what I would do. You would be sad if I died? Of course. Do you even need to ask such a stupid question? I'm sorry for being so morbid. I just wanted some reassurance. It's fine. Though I dislike stroking egos, I will make an exception in your case. Your self-esteem is so fragile, I doubt any compliments I could give you would make you arrogant. You are incapable of feeling pride in anything you do. Is this supposed to make me feel better? No, but this is. Lillian leaned in a little closer, her lips just inches away from the shell of Samantha's ear. Lily? Samantha's voice was panicked, jittery, just like the beating of her heart. Lillian's tone, on the other hand, was perfectly measured, not in the least hurried, flustered, or fluttering. Her voice was smooth, just like satin, so much so Samantha swore she could feel each syllable Lillian spoke caressing the innermost part of her ear. I care about you. No matter how cold I act, or what cruel things I say, I will always care about you. If you died, I would be heartbroken. You mean a lot to me. You're one of my closest friends. Even if you disagree, I think you have a lot of worth. Don't sell yourself short. Treat yourself well for the times when I am not there to do it for you. You need to learn to care for yourself, just as much as I have learned, despite your shortcomings, to care about you. Oh, her eyes shifted. Oh, her hair. Oh. Man, a girl after my own heart, though. Dang. Ah, it really does look better. Do you like it? Yes. It almost looks as though it was done by a professional. What do you mean, almost? Lillian smiled smugly, her arms folded. I strive to be professional in each and everything I do. I never bother to undertake a task if I cannot complete it perfectly. And you're so modest, too. Samantha surveyed her face in the mirror, tugging at her new hair in abject awe. Even though she wanted to poke fun at Lillian's egoism, she could not. Lillian really had done a good job. Samantha couldn't fault her, not that she wanted to fault Lillian. She was more than content to believe that Lillian was a perfect, infallible goddess. That's the word. How did you get it to look so smooth? You must have done this before. Well, I have had a few chances to hone my craft in the past, yes. I cut my little brother's hair all the time when we were younger. You mean Theodore? Do I have any other brothers? Not that I know of. Why'd you have to cut his hair, though? Isn't that something the parents usually do? You would think that, wouldn't you? But there were complications. Complications? All families have their own circumstances. You, of all people, should know that, Sam. True. I just wondered. Samantha frowned, hands held together on her lap, looking down at her feet. You never go home in the holidays either, just like me. Excuse me. Do your parents, do they not want to talk to you? Or are they unable to? It's complicated. Then again, we do go to boarding school. I imagine most of the girls here have complicated relationships with their families. Very few people without extraneous circumstances get sent to boarding school in this day and age. I suppose so. Of all the girls Samantha had grown to know with some deal of intimacy, few of them had what would be called traditional upbringings. Boarding school was a good place for parents to send their children when they felt that they could not, or simply did not want to, take care of them anymore. So why was Lillian here? Maybe there was something about her past Lillian was not telling her. Not that she had any obligation to, but Samantha could not help being curious. Samantha had worried when she learned she would be sharing a room with DeQuincy that the other girl would take this as an opportunity to start exploring memories she would rather leave unexamined. However, to Samantha's immense relief, DeQuincy was so busy admiring Lillian she had neglected to pay Samantha even the slightest sliver of attention. Though Samantha did not like the way DeQuincy fawned after Lillian, now she found it welcome. There should have been like a comma there. Just so long as it kept her distracted. Oh my word! But Lillian's nightgown! Oh, and her hair! Oh, it's all so cute! We're having a pajama party! I don't know why you're so excited. Isn't it obvious? It's because I'm witnessing such a rare sight! There's nothing more incredible, nothing more heart-pounding than seeing your idol dressed in her sleepwear like mere mortal. I'm starting to feel faint. This must be a dream. Don't be ridiculous. There's nothing special about my pajamas. On the contrary, Lily, I think you look incredible. I'm so happy I was grouped with you. I'd never forgive myself if I missed out on something like this, even if I lived to be 200 years old. Judging by the amount of illegal substances you claim to have consumed on your blog, I doubt you will live to be much older than 20, let alone 200. Lillian, you're always so aloof, but that's what makes you so charming. I'm not trying to be charming. And yet you still are. You just can't help yourself. I suppose it must be because of your poetic soul. Lillian rolled her eyes. The small and sickly Johanna Keats, the third and final member of Lillian's study group, was already curled up in her bed, her covers wrapped around her like a protective shroud. She was not asleep, however. Instead, she was watching the exchange between DeQuincy and Lillian, blinking anxiously. Did she dislike conflict? The poor thing. She looked so small, swamped by her blankets like that Samantha couldn't help but feel sorry for her. I don't know if I'll be able to get any sleep if you keep pestering me. I'm not pestering you, Lillian. I'm just curious about each and every detail of your private life. Don't you think that's commendable? How would I commend somebody who's stalking me? I fail to see the logic. Quincy smirked, puffing out her chest. I may seem like a stalker to you, but I am sure in many years to come, people will appreciate the amount of effort I've expended to document your each and every move. When you become famous, the series of essays I intend to write about you and your character will be crucial to implementing and sustaining your legacy. I don't think I want my life to be recorded by a person like you. It might reflect badly upon me. Don't worry about it. Nobody will ever be as thorough as me. I intend to uncover as much information as I possibly can, the bad along with the good. For it is only by contrasting a negative with a positive that the good qualities can shine the brightest. Without darkness, there is no light. Without night, there is no day. And without Lillian, I have no cause to be alive. Your last opposition was a little off there. Oh, really? It must be because I am not half the genius you are, my dear Lillian. Lillian sighed, shoulders slumping, pressing a hand against her brow. I am beginning to feel faint. I believe I need some fresh air to clear my head. I'm going to take a walk. Don't wait up for me. Huh? But it's so dark outside. What if you get lost or fall in a lake or slip and bump your head? I appreciate the concern, but it's unnecessary. I did used to live in the countryside when I was younger. I am more aware of the perils the seemingly idyllic landscape presents than most. Oh my word, why can't... I see. I suppose your soul is so unyielding and cannot be fettered easily. Not by the four walls of this mere youth hostel. I would expect nothing less from Lillian Wordsworth. I won't go alone either. Walks are always more enjoyable when taken with another person who appreciates the beauties of the natural world as much as I do. Grab Samantha! Yeah! Lillian stooped by Samantha, pressing one hand against the young girl's shoulder. Samantha blinked, looking up at Lillian in surprise. She had expected when Lillian had announced that she was going for a stroll, she'd be taking it on her own, leaving Samantha as a decoy for De Quincey to sink her fangs into. Lillian was a solitary person, and Samantha had intruded upon Lillian's free time a great deal over these last few hours. As such, when the following words fell out of Lillian's mouth, and so easily too, I'm going to take Samantha with me. Samantha felt herself turn bright red. She hadn't expected that. She hadn't expected that at all. Wait, no, nothing from De Quincey? She's not gonna be like, rah, 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 you should take me and not her? Nothing. Okay. I'm fine with it. I'm just surprised De Quincey's so fine with it. Are you sure this will be all right, Lillian? What? Are you telling me you wanted to stay in my room so you could be harangued by De Quincey? Samantha could not help but note that, even though Lillian had invited Samantha to stay with her overnight, Lillian had not referred to it as their room. Instead, she had used the singular form of possession, my. No, that isn't it. I can't think of anything I would like less, actually. I am quite good at imagining things. Then appreciate the fact that I am doing you a favor and don't worry so much. I wish I could. However, I fear my mind is naturally predisposed to worrying. It is one of my special talents. If only your special talent could be something more useful, like being able to do long division inside your head. That would probably save you, and me, a lot of grief. I agree with you, but I cannot always control my own thoughts. The night air was crisp and cool, even chillier than it had been earlier in the day. The wind whistled through the trees, low and mournful. It caught at Samantha's hair, just as fingers might. We're not supposed to leave our rooms this late. If a teacher happens to find out, we might get in trouble. It will be fine. Nobody will know. When did you care about the rules anyway? If you were that diligent, surely you would make more of an effort to get to class on time. Well, I thought I was going to try and turn over a new leaf, you know? The New Year's may have passed already, but one can make resolutions at any point in their life. Indeed, that is true. How admirable. You're a regular prodigal son. And yet, despite her supposed praise, Lillian's face did not soften in the slightest, just like butter that had been left in the fridge for far too long. Lillian didn't believe her at all, did she? Well, she had good cause to be skeptical. Samantha was, after all, being rather economical with the truth. I'm worried that Quincy might tell on us, too. She's always loved spreading rumors. She won't. That girl might be a pain, but at least she does what I tell her. You have nothing to fear from her. I hope so. Samantha shuddered, and not just because of the cold. The memory of Miss Pope from earlier, bearing down upon her like some kind of demon, was not an easy one to ignore. If we do get caught, perhaps you will be excused, given you are the head of the student council, but I'm not nearly as popular among the teachers as you are. That is because you do not go out of your way to make yourself likable. If you stopped being so late to everything, I am sure their opinion of you would change. Perhaps. However, I feel it may be too late now. It's a lost cause. You may be right, but you have no reason to fret. I don't? No. Lillian turned to give Samantha a small, comforting smile. Even if we are discovered, I will vouch for you. You mean you will defend me from the wrath of Miss Pope? Of course. I believe I will be able to think of some kind of convincing lie to satisfy her. You underestimate just how much she hates me, Lily. You underestimate just how persuasive I can be. I do not want to be a poet for nothing. Part of being a writer is being able to influence others, is it not? I will tell her that I felt sick and needed a breath of fresh air, but did not want to go outside alone. I believe that cover story will be adequate. Well, if you're sure. But even though she acquiesced, Samantha still felt uneasy. She jumped at the sound of her own footsteps, as though expecting Miss Pope to descend down upon her at any second. She had to stop worrying so much. She was with Lillian now, as she had wished to be for the last 3 months, and all was well in the world. She really had missed Lillian to an almost impossible degree. What about your friend Roberta? Poor Roberta is probably still so upset. I hope they can apologize to each other soon. Finally, she felt like herself again. Now, she was able to laugh and smile without it feeling horribly forced. Her mouth twisted up into a mockery of merriment simply for the sake of others. Now, she actually felt happy, truly happy, and she did not want to ruin that with her own excessive worrying. Life was miserable enough as it was, without her making it even worse. So, we have come back here? Yes, I enjoy it. It's peaceful. The two girls were sitting at the same lake where Samantha had encountered Lillian earlier in the day. The lake was only about 10 minutes away from the youth hostel, yet the distance seemed far greater in the dark. Out in the countryside, there were no bright orange pools of artificial light from street lamps to help guide the way. Instead, their path had been illuminated by a sprinkling sea of stars and the large, heavy full moon. The wind whistled, running across the surface of the lake. Samantha could see the water ripple, though it was so dark she could hardly make out her own reflection within its murky depths. Samantha shivered, wrapping her arms around her middle, trying to keep herself warm. Why had she gone outside in such a flimsy nightgown? She should at least have put a cardigan on first, not that she would have done, given she had not brought one with her. If she froze to death, it was a grim fate she had inflicted upon herself. Are you cold? No, I'm fine. Samantha forced a smile, or tried to anyway. It was somewhat difficult, given how badly her teeth were chattering. Come to think of it, Lillian was wearing a rather flimsy nightgown herself. In fact, it was even shorter than Samantha's. Why did Lillian not look as cold as Samantha felt? Maybe, thought Samantha, with an unusual touch of bitterness, it was because Lillian was more cold-blooded than she was. Lillian Wordsworth had always been haughty and self-sure. So much so, not even the wind could daunt her. Don't be silly. If you were fine, you would not be shaking like that. Is it really that obvious? You are always obvious. You would not know what subtlety was even if it hit you over the head. But it would not hit me over the head, for that would not be very subtle, would it? Do not play word games with me. The fact remains that you are freezing, and this must be rectified. You really don't need to worry about me, Lily. Samantha looked down at her knees, her face turning red. Lillian's gaze was always so piercing, her eyes so sharp. It was almost as though Lillian's gaze were a physical thing. Samantha wondered if she were to... I need to slow down. I'm like... Samantha wondered if she were to reach out and attempt to touch it, whether she would cut her fingers, drawing blood. I don't want you fussing about after me all the time, or it will end up as it was before. It will once more become too clingy, and you will grow tired and disaffected. You have already left me once. I don't know what I would do if it were to happen again. I'm scared. Lillian sighed. The breath she expelled was visible, a faint puff of smoke that hovered in the night sky. Silly. And, with an uncharacteristically sing-song tone, she gave Samantha a flick to the forehead. Ow! Samantha reeled, seeing stars. Lillian's fingernails really were a force to behold. You are cold and uncomfortable, and I will not be able to converse with you whilst being aware of these 2 points. I would feel too guilty. Guilty? Because I am the one who brought you out here. I do not want you to suffer because of my selfish whims. I like to try and take care of my friends if I can. I did not join you because you demanded it of me. You make it sound as though I had no free will in the matter. I followed you because I wanted to, because I wished to talk to you, because I like talking to you. And because you wanted to avoid De Quincy? Well, that too, but it was not the only reason. You flatter me. Regardless, you are shivering. You will catch a cold like this. So, for my own peace of mind, Lily shifted a little closer to Samantha until their legs were brushing. Samantha stared at her as though she had spontaneously recited all 63 clauses of the Magna Carta. What are you doing, Lillian? I'm keeping you warm. What else? But you, I mean, do you really want to be so close to me? I don't see why I wouldn't. You are my friend, after all. Oh, the friend zone is so strong. But, I realize I have some rather maudlin sensibilities, Sam, but the misunderstood artist freezing to death in the embrace of nature is incredibly cliche. Do not let yourself succumb to such an overwrought demise. If you do, I would be so annoyed I would not attend your funeral. That's so cold. Just like you right now. That was a good retort. Almost disgustingly so. Samantha clicked her tongue against the roof of her mouth, but she did not sound annoyed. If anything, her tone was light, gently amused. Nobody else can argue with me like you can, Lillian. I don't know why I even bother anymore. Good. You are so ridiculous, and so determined to continue being ridiculous, that you need somebody to argue with you from time to time. Well, I won't counter that. I know you are right. With a smile, Samantha nudged her body a little closer to Lillian's. The two were now so close Samantha could have rested her head against Lillian's shoulder. Samantha could feel Lillian's body against hers, veiled in her nightgown. She was soft and warm, unlike the cold earth beneath Samantha's thighs. Excuse me. Lillian smelt nice, though she could not pinpoint what it was exactly that she smelt of. Scent was not something as easily definable as romance novels made it out to be, their pages infused with the aromas of strawberries, chocolate, and peppermint, but Lillian smelt nice all the same. Maybe it was just Samantha's imagination. Maybe it was because she was in love with her. You are being awfully nice to me, Lillian. Awfully? You make it sound as though I am torturing you. Well, maybe you are, to a certain degree. Killing me with kindness. Isn't that how the saying goes? You'd prefer if I was cruel and distant? I I would not prefer it at all. I can say that with certainty, but I do not know if this is good for my heart. When you treat me nicely, Lillian, I don't know how to react. I get flustered. How contrary. If you had told me about this peculiar ailment in advance, maybe I could have spat on you or pulled your hair. I'm not too sure about that. I can be rather vicious when I feel I have been wronged. Well, I have seen you lose your temper when you get negative feedback on your academic work, but that usually wanes after a while, when your self-loathing takes over. That's true. I am probably the worst kind of coward. Get angry and lose my temper, then instantly regret it and feel guilty. So much so that the wronged party is incapable of being mad with me. You always feel guilty. Perhaps I deserve to. I did try to stab my older sister when I was a child. You did? Why? I don't really know. It was over something rather stupid. Well, that doesn't sound too out of the ordinary for you. Are you calling me stupid, Lillian? No, I am saying the things that upset you generally are. But do go on with your story. I'm intrigued. Attempted murder always makes for an interesting tale. You have been spending too much time with De Quincy. Not of my own volition, I can assure you. Well... Samantha pondered, staring up at the sky. She had not shared the story with Lillian before because it was shameful, and she felt embarrassed reflecting upon it now. I was 7, and Fran, my sister, was 9. We had an argument because Fran ate a snack that I had been saving for myself, and... You tried to stab her? I never even had the opportunity to try. My mother entered the kitchen when I was holding the knife. I was afraid she would punish me, so I dropped it and ran away. I had no idea food was that important to you, Sam. Gluttony is a deadly sin, you know. A pause. And wrath, too. I am aware. It wasn't really because of the food. I suppose I've always been jealous of Fran. She's older than me, and she's so pretty. Mother and father always made a fuss of her. Mother especially. I am convinced Mother likes her far, far more than she likes me. I can imagine why. I like her a lot too. Maybe that's why it upset me so much. I knew if Mother did prefer Fran, she would have good reason to. I mean, what is there to like about me? I am selfish and irresponsible, so desperate for constant company I only alienate those around me. I've been like that ever since I was a child. Maybe I haven't changed that much. I can't say. I did not know you when you were younger. This might, however, be a blessing. What do you mean? You sound as though you were quite passionate in your youth. You were teasing me, Lillian. Just a little. What of it? It isn't funny. I really did feel bad about what I did. Or nearly did, rather. To Fran. I cried a lot and begged for her forgiveness. It must have looked rather pathetic. I don't know why I thought to hurt her to begin with, given I knew it would only upset me later. In retrospect, it was very foolish of me. And again, when am I not foolish? Cannot answer that question. Though I can your previous one. It is simple. You do things that upset you because you are a masochist. Samantha pouted. She was growing rather tired of hearing this. I am not. And I think you are protesting too much. Well then, that makes you an egotist, Lillian, for believing you can arbitrarily assign personality traits to me. I act like this only because I am a poet. Observing the world around me is what I do. Lillian shifted slightly, his skirts rustling underneath her. I apologize if you feel I was mocking your circumstances, though. I, too, have a rather fraught relationship with my family. Not to the extent that I tried to murder them, mind, but I would be lying if I said I had not contemplated it. Your family? Yes, I have a family too, of course. Did you think you were the only one? No, of course not. I am not that self-centered. Well, I say I have a family, but perhaps had would be a more suitable term. Samantha looked at Lillian, intrigued. Lillian had never spoken to Samantha of her family before. Not once, not ever. Samantha knew precious little about Lillian's past. It stretched out behind Lillian like a vast gulf, an endless abyss. Samantha had tried to question Lillian about her origins, but Lillian never responded. She said she did not like to talk about such topics and would always divert the conversation in another direction. It was strange. Lillian rarely shied from the topic of herself. In fact, it was one of her most beloved subject matters, but she did not care to discuss her past. Samantha had tried to accept this, even though being rebuffed hurt. Weren't friends supposed to share all their secrets with one another? Samantha had shared most of hers with Lillian, including, now, that incident when she had tried to murder her own sister. Eventually, Samantha had resigned herself to the thought that she would never truly know Lillian as Lillian knew her. That was why she now felt so shocked. I have never spoken about this before, not with anybody. Lillian spoke slowly, choosing her words with care. None of the other students at St. Mary's know about this, and I do not want them to. I do not want anybody to pity me. But perhaps I should, at least, tell you. I know so much about you it would feel unfair not to return the favor. You trust me that much? Trust is not the right word. You have proven yourself, time after time, to be incredibly unreliable. You cannot even be trusted to wear matching socks 90% of the time. However, I know you would not tell this to anybody else. Even though you treat yourself with little respect, you show a great deal more of it towards me. I know you would never betray me. No, I wouldn't. I don't have many talents, but at least I have my loyalty to you. I would sooner cut off my own legs than compromise you, Lillian. And the sad part is, I almost believe you. After going for the hair, a leg or two would just be a natural progression, wouldn't it? Well, with legs, more blood would be involved. I don't think I'm very good with excessive violence. But all the poems you write are so gruesome. That is true, but they are fictional. I can stand to inflict pain upon my characters, but I cannot do the same to myself. But if you want me to cut off a limb or two, Lillian, I would at least attempt it. After I had a drink of courage, that is. Scout's honor. This is so bizarre. I love it though. Lillian's deadpan response was almost exactly the same as Roberta's had been earlier that day, so much so it made Samantha smile. You are not a scout, Sam. But I do not like my mother enough to make a pledge based on whatever limited life she has left in her. Well, you do not need to do something so drastic. I believe in you enough, without the promise of self-mutilation. I want you to know that I appreciate you, that I value your friendship, and so I think I can tell you the story of my childhood, condensed and abridged for your own satisfaction. Are you interested? This is a lot like Blackberry Honey, where the mature, mysterious girl never talked about her past, but loved talking about herself any other way. It's so interesting to see that same character type being presented here. Granted, this girl is pretty different from the other girl, but yeah, otherwise. Of course, I very much want to know. Well then, Lillian bowed her head, blonde hair fluttering in the breeze. Suppose I should start with my parents. Alright. The music is extra. There we go. I'm the second oldest of 5. My family is fairly big, though not as big as yours, of course. Not many families are. Samantha smiled bitterly, as she always did when she spoke about her family. It was impossible not to reflect upon her mother without a certain sourness to her words. My parents had too much faith in their multitasking abilities, which later proved to be misplaced. The death of her father had not helped the precarious juggling act either, as Samantha's mother was left beleaguered with that bevy of children to take care of. Yes, well, perhaps mine did too. Maybe that isn't fair, though. From what I remember, my parents were nice people. Sorry, it's still just a little bit. Okay, that should be better. My father was a little distant, but I think that's de rigueur for so-called learned men. He was always away at work. My mother, though, I don't remember all that much about her. She died when I was 8 years old. Samantha blinked. She had not expected that. Lillian always seemed so impossibly together, it was difficult to imagine any kind of tragedy ever befalling her. My father was too busy with work to look after us, so we were sent to live with various relatives. I went to go and live with my mother's parents out in Penrith. It's only a few miles away from here, you know? You were raised here? Around this area, yes. My parents lived in the Lake District, too. I used to play in the moors a lot with Theodore when we were both small, so I know my way around reasonably well. So that was how Lillian seemed to know exactly where she was, though Samantha had not a clue. Was it because of prior knowledge? Had she played by this exact lake with her younger brother years and years hence? Were the hills that Samantha had scaled, the countryside she had traversed, the same that a younger Lillian from a decade ago had traveled, with her tiny feet encased in mud-splattered shoes? Samantha squinted. She fancied she could see ghosts of the young Lillian, like shells discarded from cascadas, laughing cheerfully as they paddled in the lake. After my mother died, however, my life changed a fair deal. As I said, I had to live with my grandparents while Theodore went to stay with some relatives in Yorkshire. He still lives there, even now. I haven't seen him in almost 8 years, even though we were so close. And you miss him? I miss him a lot. When we were younger, he was the most important person in the world to me. Though I am his older sister, I am older by only a year. I was raised with him, side by side, through my childhood years. I certainly recall more about him than I do my mother. We were more like twins than brother and sister. We were always together. Being apart for him was unsettling. It was though part of me went missing, an arm or a leg, or one of my lungs. I felt so lost, as though I wasn't even myself anymore. Maybe that was because I had never been myself in the singular. I had always been part of a plural with Theodore. Perhaps this sounds strange to you. Do you know what I mean? Samantha frowned as a sudden spike of jealousy speared her heart. Yes, she did know. She knew the empty, incomplete feeling Lillian had described well was in exactly the same manner Samantha herself regarded Lillian. To Samantha, Lillian was an integral part of her being, a comforting presence that allowed Samantha to truly be Samantha. It did not really make sense, given Samantha had been Samantha for almost 14 years before she had ever even met Lillian, but it was still the truth. From the first moment that Samantha met Lillian, she had been assailed with a sudden sense that she had been languishing in the bottom of a well for the last 14 years, cold and alone, but too blind to realize it. Yet Lillian did not feel the same way about her. She could not. She already had somebody else to complete her. Her brother, Theodore. The ghost of Lillian's past, a honey-haired girl with sparkling eyes, was now running, hand in hand, with a figure very much like her. A slender boy with blonde hair, cheeks flushed from the crisp air. Samantha felt uncomfortable, as though she had been usurped by a wraith, a ghoul, a mere memory. Though he had not tangible form, could not physically come between Samantha and Lillian as they were now. He did not need to. He had already won. Samantha could tell, simply by the expression on Lillian's face when she spoke of him. He had taken Lillian from her, the loving, gentle, considerate part of Lillian that Samantha wanted so desperately for her own. She had hoped for so long that Lillian would someday return her feelings, but no longer did this seem possible. How could Lillian love Samantha when she had already given all the love she possessed away to another? It's a different kind of love, but okay. Samantha knew full well, better than anyone, that people did not have an infinite capacity for love, though the Bible might have stated it was so. Her own mother had proved her that. Samantha's mother had had far too many children. Samantha had been unfortunate enough to be born last. Her mother, though she was not a bad woman, was always forgetting her, always ignoring her, leaving her so starved for love and affection it hurt. But how could her mother love her when she had so many other children to love? Lillian was much the same. So, once again, Samantha was shunted into the darkness, just like the second set of china all families had which they never used. The sudden revelation smarted. Samantha had hoped that being privy to Lillian's past, painful though it may be, would make her feel closer to the other girl, but instead, it only made her feel further away. This is kind of an overreaction. Come on. Samantha, pull yourself together. Yet, despite Samantha's complicated feelings, Lillian continued talking. She did not even pause to hear Samantha's response to her question. Lillian got caught up talking about herself like this. She rarely paused to consider Samantha. Nobody ever did. Aw, what a cool little baby. Cute little Lillian. Love her dress. My grandparents, I don't want to talk about it very much, but they weren't the nicest people I'd ever met. They were never very nice to me. I think, maybe, they were upset that I was alive. This strange, quiet grandchild they never wanted, and their daughter wasn't. They fed and clothed me and put a roof over my head, so I suppose they weren't entirely bad. They never hit me or said anything outright abusive, but I knew, while I was living there, that they had only taken me in out of charity. Maybe it was because they felt guilty that they did not love me, as grandparents should have done, so they were trying to make amends. Did they hope, if they spent enough time with me, they would learn to find something within me they could like? I wonder. Nevertheless, our arrangement did not work. They rarely spoke to me, showed little interest in my studies, never bothered themselves with things like parents' evening or sports day. When they did interact with me, it was to scold me. They scolded me quite a lot, although I don't remember why. Maybe they didn't know why either. A pause. It was depressing. Lonely too. I thought if I kept living in that house with people who did not care for me, I would eventually fade away. I feared I would become invisible, fading into nothingness. Flowers can't grow if there isn't any sunshine. I think people are the same. If they are not given enough love and affection, then they start to wither away. Lily interrupted her narrative with a dismissive laugh. That was a rather heavy-handed simile, though. I feel quite ashamed of myself. Reminiscing is incredibly good at bringing to the forefront the most needlessly sentimental of language, isn't it? I don't know. Finally, Samantha seized up her chance to speak. Her voice was smaller than it usually was, but it was still her own. Maybe it would still be alright, so long as Lillian was by her side. Hadn't she known for years now that Lillian would never love her? That she was waiting for something that would never happen? If she had always known, why should the truth hurt so much? So she could not be the first in Lillian's heart. So what? She could manage being second. She would have to, because she could not picture a life without Lillian in it. I think cliches can be effective sometimes. If a phase has the weight of hundreds and thousands of people behind it, who have used it in similar situations to express thoughts and feelings they cannot otherwise communicate, then it becomes even more powerful, doesn't it? I think cliches help bring people together. It unites our thoughts and feelings so people can relate to one another. That might be true. I never looked at it like that before. I do not care for baseless theorizing. Lillian laughed softly, brushing a few strands of loose hair behind her ear. The ears really were delicate. Her skin was soft, peach-colored, delicate blue veins standing out underneath. Samantha had never noticed before. Sorry, weird pause. I'm like, my throat's already bugging me again. Ugh. Excuse me. Samantha had never noticed before, given just how imposing Lillian could be at times, but she was delicate too. There was an ethereal quality about her, something not quite human, as though she existed in a world divorced from reality. Sometimes, Samantha worried that Lillian was too far away for her to reach, just like the reflection of the stars glaring at the bottom of the lake. Nevertheless, I would rather avoid cliches and sensationalism in my writing whenever I can. Critics do not take kindly to that kind of thing. Maybe that is because cliches are the language of the common man. Perhaps they think it is not literary enough. Well, I don't see anything wrong with writing poetry that resonates with the common man. That's what I try to do after all. But don't you think cliches are far too removed from real life? It is because everybody uses cliches, applying them to all kinds of situations, which will differ from person to person. They start to become meaningless. Buzzwords that signify nothing other than how empty they are. Maybe that is also true. Maybe they are hollow. Maybe they are empty. It might be hard to make something mean anything if it's been said too many times. Like repeating a word over and over until it stops sounding like a real word. But I like the sense of community. Even if I could speak in the most elegant parlance imaginable, I would feel incredibly lonely if nobody could understand me. I just want to communicate with other people. For what other purpose is there to write other than communicate? I want people to understand me, and I want to understand other people too. Then again, everybody perceives things differently. No person's way of interacting with the world is the same as another's. Does that mean true communication is impossible if we are all living in different worlds? In that case, what is reality? It all seems rather subjective to me. Well, let's see. Lillian fished up a small rock, round and smooth, with her pale fingers. If I hit you over the head with this, don't you think it would hurt? Yes, of course. Samantha surveyed Lillian hesitantly, her brow creased. You are not really going to hit me with that, are you? Of course not. I don't derive pleasure from causing others pain. I was simply using it as an example. An example? Yes. You shouldn't worry too much about your subjective realities. Some things are going to remain true no matter what happens. Discussing metaphysics is a waste of time anyway. It just upsets you. They're just vague hypotheses. I don't know. Anyway, it's impossible to prove them. You are always so sensible, Lillian. I wish I were able to think in more practical terms. It would be more useful. Trust me, it comes with practice. Lillian frowned, pensive, as she turned the rock over in her palm. When I still lived with my grandparents, I was so caught up in my own unhappiness I couldn't see a life beyond my current one. I thought nothing was going to change, and I was going to spend the rest of my life drifting, unable to feel anything other than loneliness. After a while, I started to think that suicide might be a viable option, just like you do sometimes, right? Yes, that's right. I'm a very maudlin person. And it shows. When you feel sad, I can always tell. You talk differently. You act differently. So you're not truly existing in the world. But that is no way to live. I learned that for myself. So, even you felt depressed, as I have done, Lillian? Lillian smiled, prodding Samantha in the side. Are you surprised? I cannot help but be. You always look so together. You even remember to wear socks. Ah, yes. I forgot that that is the true sign of one's mental state, whether they are wearing socks or not. You were teasing me, Lillian. Because you say silly things sometimes. I will admit, though, it is surprising. I surprised myself thinking about my past. How could I have been such a gloomy child, and only 5 years ago, too? Back then, it felt as though my whole world was closing in around me. I thought, no matter what I did, nothing would change, so I might as well disappear. But I was wrong. Things did change, and my problems slowly began to resolve themselves, even though they felt insurmountable to me. That is why I don't like being depressed, and I don't like it when other people are either. Even if you are sad in the moment, there are no feelings that are permanent, perpetual. Humans are fickle, and their feelings change with their environment and circumstances. If you are unhappy, you should do something about it. Moping does no good. Being depressed is nothing more than a waste of time. How mercenary. I doubt people get depressed because they want to be. It's a miserable condition, and I would not wish it upon my worst enemy. I realize that, and I am sympathetic to those who are depressed to a certain extent, given I have felt the same way before. But you can't indulge yourself in those feelings. If you do, they'll eat you up inside. Even if it is hard, you need to keep going. then things are bound to work themselves out. And if they don't? I don't know. I've never been in a situation so very bad I could not overcome it on my own. I suppose my advice would be the same nonetheless. Just keep trying. What else can we humans do? We could always give up. You could. I, on the other hand, would not. I would not even consider it a viable option. You make it sound so simple, Lillian, but I cannot understand at all. How are you able to keep going, even when things were difficult for you? It's simple. I made myself a goal. A goal? Yes. I was tired of living with my grandparents, and so decided to do something about it. That something was attending St. Mary's. I thought I would finally be able to escape them if I attended boarding school, and they could escape me too. It was a beneficial arrangement for both parties, neither of whom liked the other. And that's why you came here? Yes. So you see, I do not care to talk about my past in great detail. Excuse me. It makes me remember the person I used to be, and I do not much care for her. I must apologize if my story did not meet your expectations, though. What do you mean? Well, given I was so secretive about it, I thought you may have built it up to be something rather more melodramatic inside your head. I know how much you love the grim and gruesome, Sam. That may be so, but only in fiction. Real life is different. I know at least that much. Are you quite positive? Of course I am. Your childhood sounds difficult enough without adding yet more twists to it. Not all tales need to include zombie sailors for them to be interesting. My attention span isn't limited. Jeez. Samantha pouted, cheeks puffed out, and turned her head to one side in an uncharacteristically huffy manner. Oops, I did not mean to skip ahead. Just in case the back button doesn't mean what I think it means. Oh, yes it does. The white ribbons tied to her hair fluttered, dancing in the breeze. Lillian watched her, amused. She could not stop herself from laughing. Neither could Samantha. Although she tried to uphold her petulant pout for as long as possible, she could not when Lillian Wordsworth, the person dearest to her heart, was laughing. Though Lillian was laughing at Samantha's expense, she did not care. She loved Lillian too much to feel any genuine offense. Rather, she felt proud. She was proud it had been her who had brought a rare smile to her lips, like a gardener cultivating a delicate flower from bud to blossom. Bud to blossom. Blossom! I guess I am kind of stupid, aren't I? Just a little, in certain areas. But you would not be if you weren't. But you would not be you if you weren't. It is an essential part of your character. Thanks, I suppose. Lillian leaned backwards, using her hands to support herself, and stared up at the sky. The twinkling stars were so far apart from one another that the sight was almost heartbreaking. Perhaps it would have been if Lillian had been more sentimental. She wasn't much like Samantha, who was obsessed with trying to prise her way into other people's consciousness, to divine what they were thinking and why. Lillian knew such questions had no answers, and so she did not dwell on them. Samantha could sense this distance. Though she and Lillian were friends, she felt keenly now, perhaps more than she had ever done before, that there was a wall between the two of them that she could not cross. Even now, Lillian was resisting her. She would not fully open herself up to Samantha. How could Samantha condemn her for that, though? It made sense. People learned from experience. After scalding oneself over an open flame, most people would not put their hand right back into the fire to see if they could repeat the previous result. They would stay away. And so, too, did Lillian. Lillian had already been hurt once, after she was parted from her brother, whom she loved unconditionally. She would not allow herself to be hurt again, and that was why she could not love. So, how do you feel, knowing about my past? Do you pity me? Of course not. I can never pity you, Lillian. I would have no right. You are far superior to me in each and every regard. If you want to know how I feel, I suppose I'm happy. Samantha, suddenly realizing the implications of her words, started to shake her head, hands in front of her face. Not because you had such a miserable past or anything. That isn't what I meant. I just, I'm happy that you told me. Maybe it means that we have become closer? Samantha blushed. Had she said too much? Were her feelings too obvious? Lillian always did say she was transparent, that she wore her heart on her sleeve, and it was true. Whereas Lillian kept away from the flames, worrying for her own well-being, just as any sensible person should, Samantha would keep putting her fingers back into the fire over and over again, of her own free will. Even if it hurt, even if it made her cry. Maybe it was because it hurt. Perhaps, in some kind of strange way, she found the pain of rejection comforting. It was a feeling Samantha was well acquainted with, had been ever since childhood. If she stopped subjecting herself to such pains, then perhaps she would no longer be Samantha, but somebody else, an imposter masquerading in her own skin. Even if Lillian never returned her feelings, she would still love her. She had to. Well, I don't know about closer exactly. I do not like being close to people. Not to anybody but Theodore. It was Samantha had expected. It was Samantha had It was what Samantha had expected. So why? Why did that response still hurt? But I appreciate your company, and I think you are a good friend. I do not want to lose you, even when we leave St. Mary's. I have no real desire to see... I have no real desire to stay in contact. Maybe it's see or stay? To see or stay in contact with my other classmates. But you're special to me in your own strange Samantha way. It would sadden me if I never saw you again. And I do worry about you, too. Samantha exhaled so heavily it made her feel lightheaded, faint, like a heroine in a gothic novel. She was even wearing a loose white nightgown. She had not expected Lillian, her aloof and untouchable Lillian, to ever say something so sweet. Well then, what are you going to do when you leave St. Mary's? I want to go to university. Oxford, I think. I like studying, and I want to do more of it. After that, though, I could think of nothing I would like better than to return home. Home? Yes. Not to my grandparents'. I never thought of their house as home, but back here, to the countryside, to the same town I used to live, back when I was still young. And I want to bring Theodore with me. We haven't seen each other in so long, and we have so much to talk about, so much to catch up on. I don't want to be parted from him for any longer. Sounds like you have it all worked out. More or less. I like to know what I'm doing with my life. How lucky. I'm jealous. I never have any idea what I'm going to do. I can hardly even decide what I'm going to eat for dinner, let alone what I'm going to do 5 years from now. This is because you don't plan ahead. You're a fickle person and you change your mind easily and you can never settle on one thing for too long. That's why you have such a hard time completing your schoolwork or your creative projects. Samantha hung her head. To list all of my faults and flaws in such a dispassionate manner without even a trace of sympathy. That really is cold, Lillian. You're gonna make me cry. Well, if I do make you cry, you always have my handkerchief. Use it if you need to. I won't go anywhere. So you would sit and watch me cry as though it's some kind of spectator sport? Maybe. It might be amusing. How mean. What did I do to befriend such a cold, callous person? Where did I go so wrong? Did not do anything wrong. Simply have poor taste. You may try to deny it, but to me, it has always been obvious. Deep down, you generally enjoy being abused, don't you? I do not. You do. Gives you more reasons to be unhappy. Being unhappy is something you enjoy, too. When unhappy, you have an excuse for your actions, a reason why you are always late, why you never finish the things you start, why you are so lazy. It's quite a commendable system to constantly evade taking responsibility for your own actions. These are so harsh. You really are mean, Lily. I can't help but be unhappy. It is part of my DNA, like the color of my eyes. Now I'll accept that part of you, whether it's biological or psychological. Having been similarly gloomy during my earlier years, I feel it would be hypocritical if I were too cruel. And, as I have said before, I truly am sorry for treating you so poorly over the Christmas holidays. I should have tried to be more understanding, especially given my own past experiences. Lily... Samantha sniffled, blinking at Lillian with her large, watery eyes. Though they had been joking until a few moments before, Lillian's jokes being rather barbed as per usual, Lillian's tone was more serious now, quiet and pensive. When I see you suffering under the weight of your own melancholy, I cannot deny that often I think I was able to recover, so why can't you? But I know that is not fair. No two humans are entirely the same, and we deal with our problems in different ways. Even though I remain unconvinced that your way of dealing can truly be termed that, given you always seem so unhappy. I will, however, try to be more understanding. Does that sound fair? It does sound fair. I would appreciate it. You might be right anyway. Perhaps I do use my own unhappiness to excuse my laziness. I have always tried to evade responsibility ever since I was a child. After I almost stabbed Fran, I cried and cried. Partially, I cried because I felt guilty, but I remember thinking distinctly that I wanted my parents to pity me. I thought if they pitied me, they would scold me less harshly. Maybe, thought Samantha, she went through life trying to garner the pity of others, as she did not believe she had any qualities that would be truly loved, or that could be truly loved. She was intelligent, undoubtedly. Even with her own crippling anxiety, she did not doubt that. But what of it? Many people were intelligent. Intelligence did not amount for much if she often felt so crushingly miserable she could not even get out of bed in the morning. If nobody could love her for who she was, with her myriad faults and flaws, then perhaps pity was the next best thing. That was what she had told herself, but that was wrong, wasn't it? Pity wasn't enough. Not anymore. All it did was make her feel even lonelier. Maybe I remain unhappy because it is easier. I've been depressed for I don't know how long. Years upon years. Ever since I can remember. I'm scared to change now I have grown used to it. But if I have you by my side, maybe I'll be able to get better. If you keep reminding me of how foolish I am, at least. Well, reminding other people that they are foolish is one of my favorite pastimes. I'd be more than happy to assist you. Thank you. You know, I was wondering... Yes? Well, I thought if I would not be so much of a burden, then I do not know what I want to do with my life or where I will go, but I would like to be by your side, Lily. Always. You are my closest and dearest friend. I cannot stand the thought of being without you, and I hate London. Over the years, I've grown to hate London so much. It does not suit me at all. The crowds, the noise, the large buildings made of concrete that tower over everything. It makes me feel ill, out of place, like one of those images in a children's activity book. The ones where you need to compare two pictures, then pick out the details that are wrong. And I think I am very, very wrong in London. If you would not mind, then I was wondering, after I finish university, if I could come and stay with you. Like you, I was also born in the countryside, and I miss it. I would like to live somewhere calm, quiet, tranquil. I am sure it would be even more beautiful if I could be near you. I've wanted that so much, for such a long time. Maybe out in the countryside, away from the rest of the world, I'd be able to get better, and then I could be happier too. I think if I am with you, maybe I'll have a real chance. A chance to be happy, truly happy, for the first time in my neurotic, troubled little life. There's a brief moment of silence. Oh gosh, the music cut out. Ugh. Lillian pondered, gazing out towards the still, undisturbed surface of the lake. Samantha watched Lillian from the corners of her eyes, hardly daring to face her. Her emotional outburst had sapped what remained of her energy. The rest had been stolen away by the cold, slowly seeping into her skin. Lillian's lips were pursed slightly, as they often were when she contemplated. Lillian's lips were smooth and looked soft, quite unlike Samantha's, which were always chapped, gnawed, and nibbled by anxious teeth. How many times had Samantha dreamt of leaning in, lifting her head, for Lillian was several inches taller than she was, and capturing Lillian's lips with her own? How often had she thought about kissing her? Samantha often felt too embarrassed to entertain such notions when she was with Lillian, and felt horribly self-conscious that, somehow, Lillian would be able to dip into her thoughts and divine what she was thinking. After all, Lillian did understand Samantha incredibly well, even better than Samantha sometimes felt she knew herself. However, the thought of kissing Lillian always returned to Samantha's mind when she was in bed at night, and her memory of Lillian's pretty face was slightly obscured by sleep. Samantha could feel her heart pounding. Her fingers, splayed against the cool earth, curled together to form a fist. Would Lillian agree to her plans? Perhaps they had been too ridiculous, too spontaneous, too ill thought out, much like the haircut Samantha had given herself only one night ago. Samantha waited, back tense, already convinced that she knew the answer. Lillian had said so herself only a few minutes ago. She did not really trust her. She did not trust anybody other than Theodore. And yet, the monosyllabic response that eventually fell from Lillian's lips, "Sure," ran completely contrary to Samantha's expectations. Huh? What was that? I said, "Sure. You don't need to sound so surprised. I was agreeing with your proposition." But why? Why are you asking? Were you hoping I would say no? Not at all. I wasn't hoping you would say no, but I suppose I expected it. Your response caught me off guard. You're such a pessimist, Sam. Why must you always assume the worst? That's why you're always so unhappy. I'm sorry. You don't need to apologize to me. I am not Miss Pope. I know that. I am very grateful for it. If you were Miss Pope, I would not care for you nearly as much. But I'm annoying, Lillian. You think so yourself, don't you? Indeed, you're incredibly annoying. So why would you agree to spend more time with me? And so easily, too. I would drive you crazy, wouldn't I? You are already driving me crazy. What with your constant attempts to sabotage your own future? What are you hoping to gain from this? I don't know. Confirmation, maybe? Of what? I suppose that you are not agreeing because you pity me? I can't help but worry that this is another one of your attempts to apologize for hurting me, like cutting my hair was, but it does not really mean anything to you. Not like it does to me. You never listen, do you? Ow! Samantha jumped. This was the third time today that Lillian had flicked her forehead. Why? Was there something in particular about Samantha's face that made people want to abuse her? Maybe it was because Lillian seemed so convinced she was a masochist. Did she think Samantha enjoyed being mistreated? Well, if she were being mistreated by Lillian, Samantha supposed she could manage. In all truthfulness, she was not too upset. Bruce's forehead was a small price to pay for Lillian's company. Still stunned, though. I offered to help cut your hair because all the unordered ends were annoying me. It looked sloppy and did not meet the standards required of students at St. Mary's. As for your proposition that someday we might live together, I agree because I enjoy spending time with you. I find your comments and criticism of my creative work incredibly useful, and I hold your opinions in high esteem. Would it make you feel better if I said I wasn't extending this invitation to you on your behalf, but mine? I am more than capable of being selfish if you wish. I am not above such things. I don't know if it would make me happier. And yet, despite Samantha's feeble protest, maybe it would, just a little bit. She wanted Lillian to want her, jealously and desperately. That was how much she wanted Lillian, after all. Samantha gulped hard. Her throat felt dry. Mine too, girl! Oh! Blood surged to her cheeks, and a hot blush blossomed across her face. It felt as though she was burning, even though the wind was cold. Her fingers were trembling. I don't know if I could be happier than I am at this moment. Why not? Because I am super gay for you. Super gay for you. Stuttering, stumbling, searching for words she could have been able to command, but at the moment could not, Samantha struggled. It almost felt as though she was drowning. She was lost in the depths of Lillian's brown eyes. Even though that was cliche, helplessly cliche, Lillian would have snorted and scolded her if she had heard such a thing. But Samantha could not help it. When it came to Lillian, she really was a helpless romantic. Lillian had completely possessed her heart. Nobody else could even come close. Samantha cared for nobody, not even Roberta, half as much. No, a quarter as much, as she cared for Lillian. Sometimes it scared Samantha. She was so dependent on Lillian to simply survive that she feared what would happen if she ever left her. She would collapse, pricking like a twig underfoot, with nothing more spectacular than a small snap, because when Samantha was depressed, she often mourned alone, out of sight and out of mind, away from other people. Now, however, Samantha did not care. She loved Lillian, and had done from the moment she had met her. She had been pierced with the bow of love, envenomed and incurable, and her feelings had been slowly driving her to madness, until she feared the strength of her emotions would destroy her. But she could not stop. She was able to live what remained of her life by Lillian's side. That would all be worthwhile. Maybe it would be enough, even to excuse the intense misery of the last 3 months, the pains and the lethargy and the dull, dreary days where Samantha had stayed in bed all day, crying. I cannot be happier than I am right now, Lillian, because I've never been this happy before, in my whole life, I think. Lillian raised an eyebrow. Why are you getting so sentimental? I've hardly said anything surprising. It may not be for you, but it is for me. I care about you, Lily. I care about you so much. I'm happy. I am simply happy that we continue being friends. I was so afraid that you'd grown tired of me, but now I seem able to hope again. Samantha smiled, even though her eyes were starting to water. Her face flushed pink, her fringe teased in the wind. Samantha slowly held out her right arm, her little finger extended. It was a juvenile gesture, something that seemed more fitting for kindergarten children in a playground than 2 teenage girls who were almost adult women, but that moment, it seemed right, somehow. Friends forever, right? What? You expect me to indulge in something so childish? Well, I thought it might not suit you, but it would make me happy. Oh, thought you said you could not be any happier than you already were. Samantha smiled sheepishly. Well, maybe I can manage just a little bit more. A teensy tiny bit. I don't know. I need to weigh up the pros and cons carefully. Lily made a show of pondering, one finger pressed against her chin, her eyes directed heavenwards. As the head of the student council, I must be vigilant. Safety of my fellow students is my #1 priority. If you were to become so deliriously happy you could not handle it, and had a cardiac arrest, that wouldn't reflect very well on me. Lillian, don't tease me! This is meant to be a heartwarming moment! I apologize. I could not help myself. You really are a bully, aren't you? Sometimes, when the mood strikes. The strong have to prey on the weak to survive. And you would prey on me? No, I have no desire to do that. Samantha's just like, prey on me? It wouldn't be interesting at all, given I already know what the end result would be. Must be nice to be that confident. Oh, it is. You really are an egoist. An egoist hiding in the skin of a pretty, demure young lady. Your attitude is not nearly as pretty as your face. But you want to be my friend all the same. I suppose so. Kinda got me there. And if it is what you really want, how will oblige. I'd like to remain friends with you too. Ah, that's adorable. And with an unusually gentle smile, Lillian shifted forwards, skirts brushing against the ground, and extended her own finger. Her nails filed neatly into those little crescent moon shapes shown in the darkness. Lillian's hands were white and smooth, the kind of hands that would have been coveted jealously several centuries ago, as the hands of a noble woman who did not have to work. Samantha's hands, meanwhile, were not nearly as attractive. Her nails had been decimated, destroyed in a long-standing war against anxiety that they could not hope to win. Those are my nails, bro. Samantha was always chewing at her nails when she felt stressed. She broke them off between her teeth, or peeling layers of fingernail away like removing wallpaper. Not even the skin around her nails had been spared. It was a ravaged landscape littered with red welts and small cuts. Lillian did not seem to mind. She did not bat an eyelid. Not even when she linked her little finger together with Samantha's. Friends. Not forever, because I can't promise you forever, and I know neither of us will live that long. But friends all the same. Do you think you can accept my terms and conditions? I would be more than happy to. Then let's stay friends. Arguing with you was more stressful than it's worth, and it was lonely too. You missed me? More than I imagined I would. I really don't know anybody quite like you. Isn't that a good thing? I suppose. If I knew too many Samanthas, I fear I'd go crazy. One of you, however, can be managed. Although I have always felt it was immature to rank relationships, I cannot deny it. For better or for worse, you really are my best friend. Ugh, my word. I do really like this visual novel, but also there are just moments where it's really long-winded and detailed. Like, I know it's a visual novel, but I feel like just how much writing there was, it would have made more sense as like an actual book with maybe some illustrations here and there. Like, just because of how long it would derive and like go off, and the long pauses between dialogue sometimes, I'm just like, oh, this is killing me. There is so much to read. I mean, I appreciate a lot of information and detail, but even some of it I was just kind of like, oh, can we move on? Get to the point, please. Like, did we need to know how terrible Samantha's fingernails were? But it's fine. It's still a good story. I did like the different endings and like sort of the different things they imply. But this one was definitely, well, a very long ending. A very nice, happy ending too. Even though we know the poets' real lives and what happens to them. It's still nice in this game. Of course, I need 100% achievement. Speaking of, Esteem gonna... Yay, you unlocked every single achievement. Congratulations. There we go. I don't know why it stopped working like that. Okay, anyway, here's all the CG art. Okay, but again, what I was saying. Like, this looks great. And then for some reason, when she turns her face around, it doesn't seem to belong. I mean, it looks better now than when I first saw it, but it still also seems really startling. I don't know. And then them cutting hair. It's cute. Baby Lillian. Their nice little promise. De Quincy being poor. 3 bears. Roberta. I like to believe that they apologize to each other. Then there's the game art. Also, the really sad. Forgot her name again. Byron. Ending. And then Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner. I know we already saw these before, but I like revisiting them now that I actually have all of their background stories unlocked. That makes more sense. The murder screen makes more sense now that we know, like, the dialogue she has about murder and stuff. Oh, there, that's Miss Pope. That's right. I forgot who she was. When I first looked at this, I was like, wait, who's this supposed to be? And then I realized it was Miss Pope. It's Miss Pope. Okay. But yeah. Cool. Great. So yeah. That's it. We're officially done with the Asphyxia. Got all of the endings, read through everything, got all the CG art. It's great. I already said my piece of what I thought about it, so... Great story, though. Alright, I'm gonna go now and pass out. Because I'm exhausted. Bye!